Hello, welcome to another wonderful edition. Today, you can as well subscribe to my channel, Ezayola. I welcome you to this wonderful online class at this time. Today, we want to look at a very wonderful topic before us. English language is always the subject. We're looking at clauses, and this is a topic I believe will be very wonderful for the learners of English language. Like I said, we are looking at clauses already established on the board. We want to talk about the meaning of clauses. What is a clause actually? And many people have these controversial ideas that vary as far as the meaning of clauses or clause is concerned. But I want to tell you today something different from what you have been told or probably you used to know. As we talk about clauses, there could be many definitions that have been given to clauses. But I personally don't like defining clause. The reason is because we have divisions in clauses. When we talk about clauses, clauses can actually be divided into two categories, namely, we have the main clause, which is also referred to as independent clause, insubordinate clause, principal clause. So this first category of the clauses is actually possessing these various names. Like I said, it can be referred to as the main clause, the independent clause, the insubordinate clause, and the principal clause. You meet certain textbooks or you come across certain textbooks and you see some of these names. You don't need to get confused. When we talk about main clause, we are also talking about independent clause. Whichever name can go, or insubordinate clause or principal clause. The second category of the clause is the dependent. We refer to it as dependent clause or subordinate clause. Now, when we talk about the main clause, which can also be referred to as the independent clause or the insubordinate clause or the principal clause, we mean the type of clause that can stand alone to portray complete logical meaning. Normally, clauses involve group of words. It will be very wrong as a student to attempt the definition of a clause by you saying that a clause is a word. No, that would be very wrong. When you talk about clause or clauses involve group of words. And this group of words must be well arranged. So, talking about the main clause, which is the first category of the clause we are talking about, it can be seen as a well arranged group of words which can stand alone. Of course, it must possess the presence of a finite verb. And that is one significant thing about clauses. Clauses, of course, must possess, a finite verb. There must be the presence of a finite verb in clauses, whether main or dependent clause. So, like I said, the main clause is the type of clause that can stand alone to portray complete logical meaning. And like I said also, bear it in mind that this group of words must possess a finite verb. we can also look at them to some extent, talking about the main clauses, we can also look at them as simple sentences. That's why they are independent. They are independent because they can stand alone to portray complete logical meaning. Now, the second category of the clause or the clauses are the subordinate. The subordinate clause is the type of clause that cannot stand alone to portray complete logical meaning. Meanwhile, they must depend on other group of words for completeness. Now, like I said, the main clause, the category of the main clause is the type of clause that can stand alone to portray complete logical meaning, while the independent clause or the subordinate clause are the type of clauses that cannot stand alone to portray complete logical meaning. We are going to look at examples of the types of clauses we can refer to as the main clauses. When we talk about the main clauses, let us use some words to exemplify what we are saying. Now, for the main clauses, examples of main clauses. Remember, I said that they are the types of clauses that can stand alone to portray complete logical meaning. We have expressions like I saw the intelligent child. This is an example of a clause. But then you should understand that this is a main clause. It is a main clause because it involves group of words, well arranged, with a finite verb saw. And then it can portray complete logical meaning. When I say I saw the intelligent child, it is a clause. But then it comes under the category of the main clause, or like I said, the independent clause, or the insubordinate clause, or the principal clause. Another example, he is my very good friend. He is my very good friend. One point we should take note of is that as far as we are talking about clauses, clauses must possess the presence of the verbs. The presence of the verbs are very indispensable as far as the clauses are concerned. Remember, we are talking about the main clauses here. Something like Obi has good manners. This is another example of a main clause. Always take note of the presence of the verbs, which is very, very essential in clauses. The presence of the verbs, like I said, is very essential. Now let us look at the subordinate clause. The subordinate clause, once again, I said, it involves the group of words that is well arranged. Of course, it must be well arranged. And then there is also the presence of a finite verb. But in the case of subordinate clause or dependent clause, it cannot stand alone to portray complete logical meaning. There must be need for other group of words it must subordinate. That's why we talk about subordinate or dependent. It must subordinate with other group of words before you talk about completeness. Examples, we have something like because he did very well. When we say something like this is a group of words, of course, well arranged. It has the presence of a verb. This is a verb here. But then, when you look at it very critically, for someone to come and say because he did very well, this cannot make a complete logical meaning. That is why it falls under the category of the subordinate clause. Let's look at another example. Something like whom I love so much. This is another example of a subordinate clause. Whom I love so much. Look at the verb. Always have it at the back of your mind that clauses must possess verbs. There must be verbs obtained in clauses. That is why they are very unique, because apart from the clauses, we have the phrases. Of course, we're not talking about them. They also involve group of words, but in the case of phrases, there are no verbs. But for the clauses, that is one significant thing that distinguishes the clause from the phrases. Another example, we have something like who decided to visit me. Who decided to visit me. This is another example of a subordinate clause. We have the presence of verbs decided. Decided. That's another verb obtained. So we need to know that clauses, like I said, involve two categories. We have the main clause, which I have explained with the examples, and then we have the subordinate clauses. In our next class, we shall be talking about bringing the main clause and the subordinate clause to merge them together so that we can obtain a kind of sentence example we call complex sentence.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon.